Hi, it's Dre Griggs of Obsidian Wisdom. Today we answer the question, what are 8 reasons people retire earlier than they planned? And we get this information from Gallup research, and I'll put a link to their chart, but what you'll see is, on average, people retire about 5 years later. So in 2022, the average retirement age was 61 years old. But that same year, when they asked people when they expected to retire, people said they expected to retire at 66. The number one reason people retire earlier than the expected time that they wanted to is healthcare reasons. Whether it is disability, whether it is you, whether it is your spouse, there is some sort of a healthcare issue that requires us to retire. And as I've mentioned before, about 70% of people who are 65 and older will have some sort of a long-term care episode where they'll either need a home health aide or an LPN, a licensed nurse practitioner. Someone will have to come to your house and help you to be able to do normal day-to-day operations. And that on average requires about $30,000 to $40,000 every single year. And on average, it's about 3 years that we need to have long-term care covered for. That is the number one reason that most of us retire. We just aren't as healthy as we planned on being. And the interesting thing about that is if you think about professional athletes, right? I watch a lot of sports. The number one reason that they retire is what? Health reason. As far as their mind is concerned, as far as their understanding of the game is concerned, they are at a high level. They may be at their highest level than they've ever been at just because of the wisdom they've received over the years. But what ends up happening is we get a little dinged up, we get injured. There are things that we didn't know would happen where we find ourselves injured on a more, where we find ourselves maybe getting injured on a slightly more regular basis, or we notice that the recovery time takes a lot longer. And because the recovery time takes so much longer, but the injuries seem to be more frequent, that really messes with our mind where sometimes it's the small nicks and dings along the way. It's not that we had a long-term care episode or any large event happens. Sometimes it's just these small events just keep adding up to the point that we decided to retire. There are many athletes who retire when they injure themselves because it was so grueling to go through the physical therapy and the surgery that they just didn't really feel like they wanted to do that again. And you and I are the same way. The age isn't as big of a deal as it's much of the healthcare issues where in our mind, we're so sharp, we're so focused, we're so ready and able to go that as our body slows down and out of the recovery, or we just get injured a little bit more easily, that it can take a mental toll on us as well. The number two reason that people retire earlier than expected is job loss or layoffs, where the company is going through some sort of a change. And maybe it's just the economy where there's a recession and they know that they have to let some people go. Maybe the company was bought out and the new owners are getting rid of everyone that makes a certain amount of money. It is no secret that most people make more money in their late 50s leading into retirement than we did when we first started our career. And there's a variety of reasons of this, but the most simple one is even if you paid me the same amount and you just gave me a 3% increase every single year to keep up with inflation, well, that is significantly higher than someone who may be entering that position today. And most companies understand that. We also know that the longer we work somewhere, the higher likelihood that we've been promoted somewhere along the way. If we get a promotion that we normally get higher than a 3% raise, that means that we're making more than what they could bring someone in. I know I have personally seen someone who's been laid off at the director or the executive level, and then when their position was reposted to be refilled, the HR had lowered it to a manager level. Or maybe they took one person's position and they split it into two. There are a variety of reasons that people end up being laid off, but it is something that we do want to keep in mind that if we're making a certain amount of money and we're higher up, but we're not high enough that we're making that decision of who gets laid off, it increases the likelihood that maybe we're someone that gets chosen. Number three on our list is family obligations, where we had a certain amount of time to be able to work, to put our money aside, to be able to focus, and something happened within our family that we felt we needed to take care of. That can be taking care of your parents where you don't live in the same city or they need more attention than they needed early on. And as a result, you may have to free up your time, which may require you to retire earlier than you expected. This could be something with your children where maybe they were disabled or something happened to them and you need to take care of your grandchildren. There are so many unexpected events that happen every single year, but one of those may be to a family member that requires you to fill in that gap, whether it's taking care of a grandchild or a child, or it could be something that happened to one of your siblings and now you're taking care of your nieces and nephews. There is so much that can go on a daily basis, so many things that we take for granted, but we do want to be there for our family when and if we're able to. In fact, there was someone I know that had to make that exact same decision where their spouse was someone who was going through a lot of health problems where they couldn't drive and they really couldn't take care of themselves. So this person kept driving them to their appointments. They kept helping them out at home. And it really leads nicely to the next one, which is just burnout. Sometimes that burnout is caused by work from a change of culture, the politics. There's so much that can bother us about work. But sometimes that burnout could have to do with things that are happening outside of work in your personal life. It could be with your spouse, where you're taking your spouse to all of these appointments, but then you still have to go to work, or where because your spouse isn't feeling the best, you're not only taking care of your spouse, but you're taking care of all of the household issues, and then you're still maintaining all of the responsibilities that you have at work. As we have more and more spinning plates, more and more things that we have to allocate our time to, the fewer things that we can allocate towards our fulfillment, our overall happiness. While we do find joy in being able to fulfill the responsibilities that we want to be able to do for our family members, it doesn't change the fact that we still would like a little bit of time to refill our batteries. Even if you can't get the Cadillac version of long-term care insurance, where you have a home health aide come in your house, or where you have a nursing home facility where someone can stay at all the time, what if you're able to just give yourself one day a week off? Most of the times we underestimate how much work goes into being someone else's home health aide all day, every day. Just imagine if it was a job you went out and applied for, and they told you that you would be on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you're not getting paid to do it. You and I would say, well, I'm not going to sign up for that. Well, I understand that while we love our family and naturally we want to protect and take care of them, it doesn't change the fact that the burden is there. That burnout is a real thing. And it's something that causes us to retire earlier than we expected, because there are so many things that we can quit on. And normally our spouse or our family members isn't one of them. Number 5 on the list is corporate restructuring. I'll give you 2 personal examples that happened to me when I worked in corporate America. Number 1 is internal restructuring, where what happened was the company had, let's say, 5 departments, but each department had its own finance department, its own accounting department, its own IT department, and they had their own sales department. And the way leadership saw it is everyone had a certain expertise as far as a business unit, and each business unit had its own needs. So they had separated into individual silos. And then within each business unit, we had our own individual departments. Then what they decided to do over the years is they said, all right, there's a lot of redundancies going on here. Let's have an enterprise model. And for those that don't know, enterprise model, the way that works is instead of us having a pricing department in each of these individual places, we'll have one pricing department that does the pricing for each of the business units. And so what they did is they said, okay, let's create one enterprise pricing department. Let's create one enterprise accounting department, one enterprise sales department, one enterprise IT department. And then what they'll do is inside of each of these overall departments, there'll be one person that maybe works within each of these units. Well, when something like that happens, you end up with a lot of redundancies, a lot of duplicate positions. And so they end up trying to move people from these duplicate positions. Remember, we each had our own individual directors, our own individual executives. Well, from an enterprise level, now we don't need that many directors. So they start getting rid of some of these positions. So that would be restructuring. The other one is external restructuring, where maybe there was a merger and acquisition. And if 2 companies merge, well, then everything is a duplicate. I mean, maybe not everything, but most of the positions are duplicate. Each company has its own pricing, its own accounting, its own sales team. And the company then decides, well, which one do we want to keep? If you have a long-term focus, then it will be more like that first in, first out kind of a vibe, where the last person that we hire has the least amount of experience, the least amount of goodwill built up in the company, where it would impact the company the least amount, where you would say, hey, wasn't Dre just hired last week? You'd be like, yeah, but they had layoffs. You'd be like, oh, well, he seemed like a nice guy, but it's been a week. Versus, I haven't seen Dre in a while. I haven't heard his laugh in a while. And they'll be like, oh, you didn't know they laid Dre off? You'd be like, wow, really? After 35 years or something like that? So you can see how it would impact the culture of the company, but it really does depend on the company's values when they make that decision. If you were someone is thinking about retiring in the next 5 years and you want to be happy and not worried about it, go to obsidianwisdom.com to learn more. Now, I know the first 5 reasons we mentioned that people retire earlier are not the most exciting reasons, but the last 3 are positive reasons that you would want to be able to retire early. Number 6 on our list is you achieve financial stability. What happens is we put numbers together, projections together, and maybe you paid off your debt earlier than you expected. Maybe you were able to put more money towards your retirement than you expected. You got rid of the bills, or your kids are self-sustaining. Something happened. Maybe you got an inheritance. Maybe you got a raise at work. I don't know what happened, but you had more money allocated towards your retirement than you originally intended, or you decreased how much your retirement would cost. Maybe you decided, I'm going to live in a lower cost of living state. Maybe you decided, I'm going to live in a lower cost of living country. Whatever the reason is, you've achieved financial freedom. You've hit the number that you needed earlier than you expected. And so there's no reason for you to continue working. And as a result, you get to ride off into the sunset and completely enjoy your retirement a little bit earlier than you expected. Number 7 on our list is a career change, or you found a new opportunity. Whether that opportunity was to start a company, to chase a dream, maybe a friend or someone. Maybe it was an industry that you always wanted to work in or a position that you always dreamed of having. But this was your year where all the stars are perfectly aligned. The salary matched up, the city that you're going to live in matched up, all your expectations matched up. And you said, this is it. I'm going to go for it. That's a great reason to retire. For many people, even though they plan on retiring from one position, they don't plan on retiring from work altogether. There was something that they felt they wanted to do, whether it's working and volunteering at a nonprofit, whether that is working in a less stressful position that maybe doesn't require as many hours from you. However that looks, for a lot of people, their retirement from one position isn't their retirement from working altogether. But that's a great thing and still can lead to fulfillment because you're allocating your time in the way that you want to. You're not working for a paycheck, you're working for fulfillment, you're working for purpose and satisfaction. And that is a beautiful thing. And it's often what the goal of retirement is. The goal of retirement is for us to be able to purchase all of our time back where we have this freedom and then we get to spend our time how we want to. And sure, you may decide to do something with your time that still gets you paid a certain amount of money, but you aren't working for the money. As I tell you guys all the time, when people pay me, it's simply a thank you, where they're saying, I appreciate what you do. Here's some money. And that would be true for you as well. You being retired does not mean that you decline all money. You could totally be paid to do something in retirement that you equally enjoy doing. And that's not something that you should feel guilty about because you're providing the value that people want to exchange their money for. And that's a great thing. The last and final reason on our list, which is this kind of the catch-all, is just your personal choice. There was just something that day that made you decide, you know what? I'm not going into work today. I'm going to go ahead and retire. Maybe there's this new person who was just hired at the company and you said, you know what? I'm going to give that person a week. Let's just see how it goes. And then it didn't go that well. And you said, you know what? I'm going to give them 2 weeks. Let's give them 2 weeks. Let's just feel this out. And then 2 weeks goes by and you're like, this isn't getting any better. But you have everything checked off. So it's your personal choice that I'm not going to be around this person anymore. That you know deep down that if it wasn't for work, that person would not be a part of your life. Sure, retire so that you can get your time back and not have to give it to that person. Maybe on your way to work, you were sitting in the car and you're stuck in rush hour and the stars was just aligned and you were thinking about retiring. You're like, well, I plan on working 5 more years, but I just don't feel like doing it anymore. And then you just call into the office and you're like, you know, I'm just sitting in rush hour and I'm not coming in today. I'll retire. There are so many reasons that we could personally decide to retire early. Maybe there was this amazing trip that was coming up and we have been putting off this trip saying, this is the first thing I'm going to do in retirement. We have listed out our goals. We know what we want to do, but we just said, why am I waiting? Because tomorrow's not promised to me. So maybe I should just go ahead and retire. There are so many thoughts that go through our mind when we're weighing the pros and cons of the different decisions. And I find that the less we have to think about the financial impact of our decisions, the less foolishness we tend to be willing to put up with. And as we get older, the patience meter for foolishness decreases, where we just don't think that many of these things are worth our time. And we're very decisive about making a decision that I'm just not going to be dealing with this anymore, where we let people know that we're simply not for sale, that we're not putting up with any of that nonsense anymore. As always, thank you for your time. Thank you for watching this video. If you found value in it, go ahead and like and subscribe so you can continue receiving valuable insights on how to create your own wealthy retirement system so that you can worry less and live more. Until next time, stay safe and enjoy life.